With another 2 busy months behind us, we have something to talk about. And we're gonna start with the NeoGo department this time. We have discovered a number of bugs during our recent work related to the opcode pricing model, and we have also discovered ways to improve performance for some of the opcodes. All of these changes are delivered in the new release of NeoGo 0.119.0. We do have some bugs that we also have found that are related to the state differences with the C# node, but those are going to be fixed in subsequent releases of NeoGo, and we have plans for that. What's also delivered in the same version of NeoGo is some interesting optimizations for the P2P layer. The first thing is related to the extensible message delivery. We have introduced some means to rebroadcast these messages if consensus process and extensible messages are used mostly by consensus nodes. If the process is stuck in some way and we have no progress there, we try to rebroadcast them because DBFT relies on eventual message delivery, and this is important in some scenarios where some reconnections happen or there are problems with message delivery otherwise. And another thing that we are introducing with this release is the so-called direct relay mechanism for RPC to broadcast transactions received via RPC, relay them effectively to P2P network in a more effective manner, reducing some overheads, some round trips that we have in the protocol, which is important in case your networks have round trip times between nodes that are comparable to block times. If they are significantly lower, that's not effective, but if they are somewhat comparable, then yes. As virtual machine improvements are getting merged into the C# node, and we have a number of PRs there, we are getting closer and closer to the new release with the full support for the Gorgon hard fork and full support for the new opcode pricing model. That's our primary focus still, and we are driving this work to make the release as soon as possible. Then, as I have said, we already knew of some differences in execution between C# node and NeoGo node, but I have to say that these differences do not affect the resulting state. So they are mostly happening in some faulted transactions, not in the ones that end up in the hold state. And even though they are not related to any state changes, they are still worth some time and we need some time to debug them. These fixes are expected to be delivered in the next version as well. Then we also have a set of things to deliver in the compiler. We want to improve some areas that we do not support well from the Go language perspective. This was somewhat postponed because the VM work took a bit more time than we expected, but we still have it on our to-do list. Then also we have some plans for native contract extensions, but I'm not sure these are gonna fit into the next 2 months, so we're gonna talk about them in the next episode. Now on to NeoFS side. A huge list of optimizations is delivered in the NeoFS node release 0.53.0. Primarily they are concentrated in search and get operations, and we are talking about 10-15% improvements most of the time when working via the gateway. But in some cases it can be up to 50%, and of course if you are using gRPC protocol, then it's even better. What's also important in this version is that we are delivering a set of protocol changes with the new node. It starts with the tilde hash deprecation, which is no longer required for objects and even forbidden for objects using the new API version. And also we have completely dropped from the node support for the old search API, which is problematic, insecure, obsolete, and long replaces with the search v2, which is available for more than a year now, so you should be using that already in all gateways and applications. Also, we have removed support for the getRangeHash call that was available for a long time from NeoFS node, but it was no longer used since we have deprecated audit previously and we have checked there are 0 users of it. So it's very confusing to have this API, and also it complicates access control somewhat, so we decided to remove it completely. as well as deprecate getRange call, which was a separate call, and it also complicated access lists somewhat. Now you can get the same functionality that you previously got from range, which is getting a range of object, like a part of the object, via the standard get call that currently received additional parameters, which is implemented in this new version of the node. To leverage all of this functionality, we recommend you to update to the SDK version RC19, which is available here. We're doing a lot of experiments with NeoFS now to try to optimize the transport layer for objects. And it's hard to say which experiments will end up with some meaningful changes to the code and which ones are not, because they are experiments for a reason. But we will talk about them more as we get more results. Currently, it's just too early to say something definitive, like we're gonna throw this out, change this call or whatever. It's just too early for that. But one thing we are gonna be reworking for sure is the pool mechanism we have in storage node for put and search operations. We have these pools both for local shards, and we also have them for network-wide operations. They are problematic in the way they don't allow to scale the network in a predictable and automatic manner, because these settings, they are configurable, they can be tuned for a particular node and for a particular network, but this requires quite a lot of testing and it's not entirely predictable. So we're gonna replace them with some automatic mechanisms, and I think this will really simplify administrations for nodes and also for NeoFS networks. The latest release of S3 Gateway available here is not that important on its own, because it contains just some micro-optimizations for metrics and also a multi-part upload fix. But it's important to say that we are going to be changing the same gateway in the next version. We're going to be dropping some old things that we have there, some migration code, which is related to session token v1 support and also related to settings stored in objects, the scheme that we used before we have migrated settings into the container metadata, container attributes effectively. So if you have any S3 gateway running of your own and you are using it for mainnet or for any other networks, make sure you have migrated your credentials to use new session tokens and also have migrated your bucket settings, which is done automatically by S3 Gateway currently, but it won't be the case with the next release. We are also going to be simplifying the object ACL mechanism support, because this mechanism, which is available from the S3 protocol, is long deprecated by Amazon itself. So we don't see any value in supporting all of it, and it's easily replaceable by policies and NeoFS EACLs. It at the same time causes some real trouble for NeoFS, so this mechanism is going to be reduced in our support in the gateway. A new REST gateway is available for you here with a small set of fixes, which are not that critical, but at the same time, what I really wanted to say here is that you should be maintaining and updating your REST gateways if you are running a gateway of your own. Because just recently we have found out that some of the NeoFS users have not migrated their HTTP gateways up until recently to REST gateway. And HTTP gateway is deprecated for like 2 years now. So we had a lot of time, we had a lot of migrations, we had this migration code, but then already removed this migration code and people have not yet updated. Please, 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 please upgrade your things that you use for NeoFS, like this REST gateway if you are running a private gateway. We of course are updating the gateway that we provide, but it's for test purposes. And if you want to have some application really using REST gateway, you should be running a gateway of your own. But if you're running a gateway of your own, you should support it, maintain it, and update it. So please go grab the latest version and update it. A big update to panel FS NeoOrg is delivered with the version 0.9.0. This version brings with it a new updated mechanism for token management. We have leveraged the functionality provided by Session Tokens v2 in panel, and you can now sign a single token for all operations and all containers and use panel in a much more convenient way. Because if you have used the panel previously, you probably know the flow. It's like open a container, sign a token, upload an object, sign a token, get an object, sign a token, and you are just constantly like signing these tokens, fighting with them. And it was okay for a demo because we wanted to really have these tokens have narrow scope and to show them how they really work. But it at the same time made panel not really usable in a regular manner, like if you want to do some uploads into your container and get some objects. So now you can make it in a much more simpler way. And I should add that this is still fully controllable by the user. So it's your option to sign this unified token for all operations, but you can at the same time still only allow panel to do specific actions you want it to do and not allow it to do actions you don't want it to do. So it's still completely under your control. Also, in the same release, we are providing you with the new feature that allows you to share objects for specific NeoN3 accounts. Previously, you could get a URL for your object that was open. Like if you share this URL with anyone, just this link is sufficient to get an object from even private container. But now with this new function, you can share a link that is only accessible by specific accounts that you are gonna specify when you are creating this link. Via the panel, the target user will log in the usual way, create a session token, and then be able to access this object from your private container. This is very interesting mechanism, in fact, in the way it works behind the scenes, because it utilizes both session tokens and bearer tokens. So if you are interested in how these are interacting and how these should be used properly, this is a good example for it.